2 weeks. That's how long I spent inside the Aniimo closed beta, and I walked away convinced that Nintendo should be more worried about this game than anything that's come out in recent years. Aniimo goes straight for the things that Pokemon games have refused to do for over a decade. It drops you into a real open world, gives you fast real-time combat, and instead of just throwing your monster into a fight from across the field, it lets you twine with it and you become the Aniimo yourself. And the craziest part, it's launching completely free in just a couple of months. Free is exactly where games like this either win you over or go straight for your wallet. So forget the whole Nintendo lawsuit circus for just a second, because the only thing that actually matters is which one of those Aniimo turns out to be. Make sure to stick around, like and subscribe, because by the end of this video, I will tell you exactly whether it's worth your time or just another cash grab that you should walk away from. So let's dive in. Now I want to be honest with you about how this started, because my first few hours with Aniimo almost had me writing it off completely. When you boot it up, it feels like a Disney game. Everything is bright and soft and welcoming. The difficulty is basically asleep, and it comes across as this lightweight, passive little adventure that's never going to ask anything of you. I genuinely thought this is a kid's game. It took me a good handful of hours before something finally clicked and I actually wanted to progress instead of just wander. And here's the thing that kept pulling me forward once it did click. Aniimo is constantly borrowing from the best games around it, and it somehow all feels natural. The opening stretch plays like Genshin married Pokemon. Then you unlock your player home and suddenly there's this Palworld influence, with your Aniimo working your base while you're out exploring. And the twining, where you fuse with your creature, that's pure Digimon of all things, and in combat the whole thing leans into that Digimon meets Genshin rhythm. None of that is new to gaming, but it is new to the monster catching genre, and that's the distinction that matters the most here. Aniimo takes a decade of great ideas that Pokemon has quietly ignored and mashes them into one package that actually holds it together. So let me take you to the moment the game stopped feeling like a toy for me. Early on, there's this festival, and part of the questline is proving yourself to advance to the next rank. And while I'm doing that, I run into my first alpha Aniimo out in the wild, and it fights back. With real special moves, I have to actually react, forcing me to pull out the right Aniimo with the right affinity just to do meaningful damage. That was the first time the game grabbed me by the collar and said, okay, now you need to pay attention. And once you start paying attention, this world does not want you to walk in a straight line. There's always something off in the distance pulling at you. A glow, a creature, a chest that you weren't looking for. I'll be honest, I got into the beta a little late and spent most of my time playing catch up, so I stayed on target more than I actually wanted to. But even then, it was obvious how easy it would be to get completely lost in the sauce out there. The area that really proved what this world could be was the Mistwoods. Up to that point, everything had been lush and green and open, and then the Mistwoods flips it. You have hostile plants that are actively hunting you down to put you to sleep and throw you out of the area. A completely different mood. And tucked inside was the first Omega Amino, and an area-wide puzzle that you have to solve to crack open a hidden vault. That's the kind of environmental design Pokemon has never really committed to, and it's sitting here in a free-to-play beta. But exploration isn't the thing that's going to make Nintendo sweat. This is. Remember how I said that you can become your Aniimo? You can do that from the very first hour, and you can swap between any creature in your roster on the fly. The first time it truly clicked for me was after I caught an Alpha Stellaris and twined with it. Its moveset was completely different from its base form, and traversal turned into something else entirely, because now I'm riding a literal star across the map, and there's a small detail that really sold me. When I just had my Stellaris out as a companion while I was cruising on my hoverboard, it would also pull out its own hoverboard and ride right alongside me, side by side. It's the kind of touch that really makes you bond with your Animos, and that's really the heart of it. I think you end up with a deeper connection to your Aniimo than you ever could with your Pokemon. They don't just fight alongside you, you literally become one being with them to take down the toughest fights in the game. That's a relationship that Pokemon has never once offered in 25 years. For me, that creature was Scorchhowl. It starts as an Ember Pup, one of the first little guys that you catch. It's this adorable little fire puppy, and watching it evolve into that flaming wolf and then chasing one of its two final forms, that was the hook that kept me logging back in. I've gravitated towards fire types since I was a kid, so Scorchhowl had me instantly. Now, I only made it up through the alpha tier before the beta closed on me, but even at that point you can see the scope. There are like hundreds of Amino once you factor in all the variants, sparkling and prismatics and the different area types. If you're a completionist, that well is extremely deep. And I know some of you are already typing in the comments asking whether the combat is actually good or if it's just extremely easy. And the honest answer is, it depends entirely on how you play. When you bring the right element into a fight, encounters can be a breeze. But the second you're stuck with a bad pairing, the game punishes you for it, and that's where it gets interesting. Let me give you a fight that humbled me completely. It was the Alpha Aniimo Boldus. I went up against this Alpha a few levels underleveled with a bad team comp with no water or grass type strong enough to actually put a dent in him, and he absolutely wrecked me. But on the second attempt, I sat down and learned his moveset. I figured out that tunneling underground with a certain Aniimo made me completely invulnerable to his rolling attacks. Once I cracked that and lost 90% of my team, I finally took him down. And that fight is exactly what I want more of at launch. The combat isn't complex, partly because this thing is also built for mobile, but swapping between your team feels seamless, and the ceiling is there when the game chooses to raise it. I will be straight with you though, I would love deeper combat and harder challenges across the board. Aniimo clearly leans more into exploration and collecting than it does into fighting. My hope is that at launch they find a way to serve both crowds, because the bones of a genuinely satisfying combat system are absolutely in there. Here's where I have to hand out one of my biggest criticisms, and it's the same one that basically every reviewer has landed on. The story is heavy, there is a ton of dialogue, and most of it just isn't voiced. So I'll admit, I skipped a lot of it so that I could actually go and experience the game. When a game asks me to read that much and doesn't voice any of it, my patience runs out super fast, and I don't think that I'm alone in that. And it's a real shame, because the parts that are voiced are genuinely great. Those cutscenes are engaging, and they hint at how good this world's writing can be. There's a whole questline where you help a perfumer girl, and throughout it you discover that Aniimo can have their own dreams and wills, which cracks open a much bigger mystery about where these creatures even come from and how deep the rabbit hole truly goes. And that's in the main questline. It's genuinely intriguing. So this isn't a story problem, I don't think. It's a presentation problem. If Pawprint actually voices more of this before launch, it can go from the thing that you skipped to the thing that really carries the game. I'm actually planning to take my time with the story properly when it launches, so I'm really hoping that they voice more lines. Now, this is the part that actually decides everything, and it's the reason my optimism comes with the giant asterisk, because there is one moment in the beta that gave me real pause. I'd fallen in love with the creature catching loop, and then I noticed something. There are anipods, the things that you catch things with, in higher tiers that actually make catching an alpha basically guaranteed. The free ones that you earn give you a painfully low chance, and when I saw those higher tier anipods sitting in the paid shop, that's the moment that the alarm bells started to go off, because that's the exact scene where the fun free game quietly turns into a wallet game. Now, in fairness, the devs gifted some currency shop items during the beta. I only used them on cosmetics that I really do hope that I get to keep, and on the surface this looks like a pretty classic Asian free-to-play model with cosmetics and convenience packs. I'm not the biggest fan of that style of monetization, but I'll be honest, for the people who mostly play PvE, I don't see it wrecking the experience. Here's my actual red line though, and I want you to hold the devs to this. The killer isn't cosmetics. The killer is buying player power, paying for level ups, evolutions, special prismatics, the kind of progression that a free player can't reasonably earn with time. That's a motivation killer, and it's one of the things that could make me quit the game. And we've all seen how this goes in a lot of Asian MMOs where the real poison is in PvP. Whoever has the biggest wallet always wins, and eventually it's a game built only for whales. But if PvP isn't tied to major progression, the PvE side can stay completely clean. And I'm genuinely fine with whales funding the game for the rest of us as long as everything can still be earned for free with time. And this is where that whole Nintendo situation actually comes back around. Palworld kicked the door open by becoming something that Pokemon would never allow itself to be, and it blew up specifically because of that. Aniimo is walking a much finer line. It's far closer to Pokemon than Palworld ever was, and it's still doing things that Pokemon simply won't do. And after everything that just played out in the courts, Nintendo doesn't really have the grounds to challenge this game or Palworld or whatever comes next. The gate is now completely open, which means the only thing that can stop Aniimo is Aniimo, because player trust is the whole ballgame here. This will decide for a lot of people whether the game is worth their time at all. The devs need to actually learn from these betas and listen, and nothing, and I mean nothing, can be trusted until we see the final product and the updates that follow it. Let me hit on the technical side real quick, because it's mostly just good news. On my setup, I had no lag, no stutters, no freezing, and no bugs bugs that were even worth mentioning, which for a closed beta is honestly impressive. The one thing I will warn you about though is the menus. Now I've played a lot of Asian MMOs, so the layers of menus didn't really faze me, but if you're coming from most Western games, this is going to hit you like a wall. Menus inside menus inside menus, and I'd bet good money a lot of new players are going to straight up miss rewards that they've already earned just because they're buried 3 subtabs deep. That's something Pawprint should really clean up for the Western audience, but I highly doubt that they will. On the flip side, the base system with the RV was a genuine highlight. You harvest, you build stuff, you craft your own items, and you can just feel that this is a seed of something much bigger down the line with a ton of room for deeper progression. It's the kind of system that I expect people to sink real time in at launch. I want to be upfront about one gap in my review. I played the entire beta solo. I didn't get into the co-op events or the multiplayer content, so I can't speak on how that side holds up. But here's what I can tell you. Playing solo, this game felt great. Exploration on its own was genuinely enjoyable and never truly lonely. And the multiplayer presence actually fed my curiosity in the best way. I'd be standing in the main hub, seeing another player walk by with some Aniimo that I've never seen, and immediately go, ooh, what is that? And then head out into the world hunting for it. That's a social pull that works even when you're not actively grouping up, and I think that speaks well to how the world is designed. So let's bring it all the way back. Is Aniimo worth your time at launch, or is it a cash grab that you should walk away from? My honest take, this game is worth getting into, and it easily offers a solid 100 hours of real fun. For a free-to-play game, investing a handful of hours is a no-brainer. My only real hesitation is what I sense waiting in the later endgame. Those higher tiers feel like they're going to demand either a mountain of time or a mountain of money to push through. And which one it is will depend entirely on choices the devs haven't fully shown us yet. So should Nintendo be worried? Yeah, I think they're slowly losing their grip on the genre that they popularized. Pokemon will always be massively popular, that's not in question at all. But without real innovation, they're going to bleed the gamers who want something new and polished. And Aniimo is proof that someone is finally willing to build it. This game has a slice for everyone. Pure exploration, deep collection, combat, base building, and that range is exactly what the genre has been starving for. If I had to name one thing that decides whether Aniimo succeeds or fails, it's simple. It's whether the devs actually listen to player feedback and dial back the extreme monetization for a Western audience. That's the whole game. Everything else is already good enough. So I want to hear from you. Are you going to explore the world of Idyll the day that it launches, or are you going to wait and see what Pawprint Studio actually does with Aniimo before you commit? Drop it in the comments, tell me if you think that I'm dead wrong, and subscribe if you want the full launch review when it drops. And I will see you in the next video.